Hi, I'm Joe Welinske, and I'm the program manager for the second annual Technical Communication Conference taking place in Tacoma, Washington, September 7th and 8th. And I get a chance to talk with our many speakers. And today I'm speaking with John Daigle. Hi, John. How you doing?
Hey, Joe. Good to see you again.
Well, I'm in downtown Seattle office today. Where are you speaking to me from?
I'm actually from my home office in Evergreen, Colorado, near Denver at about 8,000 feet. It's a beautiful, clear day in Colorado.
Well, it's good to have you on the event roster. I thought we could start with you talking a little bit about your background and the types of things that you're involved with on a daily basis.
Sure. Well, early on, my degree was in journalism, and so I was in broadcast news for many years, and then there in Houston, Texas, and then spent about 20 years in Austin at the University of Texas working with them, and that's really where I was when the web happened. And so after I had been teaching technical authoring, of course, folks came to me and said, "Hey, what is this new web thing, and how do we get into it?" And so that got me into a selection of tools, and of course, I try to keep up with all the different tools that are going on. And so I found out that I kind of enjoyed the idea of teaching, and so now I teach at the Metro University here in Denver, both RoboHelp, Adobe RoboHelp, and Captivate. And so, in addition, I do a lot of Captivate production for e-learning objects.
Well, you're one of the Adobe partners and Adobe's foundation sponsor of the event, and you'll be presenting a couple of different topics at the conference. I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about why you think those particular issues are important to our technical communicators today. And maybe we could start with the one that's titled Benefits of Faceted Navigation and Content Filtering.
Sure. It's kind of a long title, but it's a subject that comes up virtually every time I have a class or meet with a group. So much of authors are dealing with just huge knowledge bases, and the real trick is how do you get your user to find what they're looking for? And it sounds rather obvious, but it remains, after all these years, one of our biggest challenges. We went through the whole table of contents thing, and should we have a TOC? Should we not have one? What about an index? Used to be a big deal in the print world. Now it's not so much. And of course came along search, and as search has developed and become a little better, the focus of the end user has been almost the assumption to forget all the other navigational aids and go right to the search. And so if that's the case, rather than argue the point of having a better TOC or a better index, let's see how we can make the best of search. And of course, that takes you to the idea of filterings, because if you have all of these topics and maybe you're coming to it in a certain role, like you're in the maintenance department, the needs of those folks for a certain subject are quite different from someone in marketing. Even though they're looking for the same product information, they're looking at it from different perspectives. So one of the biggest asks that I get is, how can we separate and filter out all of the content that I really could care less about and zero in on something that's more relevant to me when I do a search or look in a TOC or whatever. And so it happens that the technology has finally caught up with that. And you'll see a lot more websites now, whether they're having to do with help authoring or not, that say, okay, here are T-shirts, but do you want women's or men's? Do you want certain colors, certain V-neck or whatever? So the more you filter down, then you'll notice that there are fewer and fewer products to be offered. Well, if you think of content like products in the sense that people are looking for something specific, the idea of filtering down is very helpful. So it happens that RoboHelp has a new feature that is called dynamic content filtering. And by that, what is meant is the author can establish certain things such as roles, like I was just talking about maintenance or whatever. But in addition to roles, let's say you've got the Philadelphia office and the London office, and maybe those different offices for your employees have different procedures that they follow, even though it's like, how do I fill out an expense report? Well, it may be different from one country to another. So the knowledge base may be the same, but and maybe both audiences need to see all of the content, but at some point they may say, hey, well, wait a minute, could I just see what we do here in the Philadelphia office? And so that they can click on certain filters that have been established by the author and go right to what they want. And it's not just the navigation, in other words, searching or TOCs or whatever. It actually changes the content inside the topic on the fly. In other words, you could be looking at a topic with, say, United States, UK, and Canada graphics, but if you say, I want to see the information in Canada, all of a sudden, all of the non-Canadian graphics go away just instantaneously. And so it's that kind of filtering, I guess, that we call faceted navigation. And so I want to talk about the pros and cons of it, and of course a little bit about how we go about making that happen.
Well, your second topic that you're going to have at the event is called Managing Reusable Content in a Multiple Author Environment. So why don't you talk a little bit about that one?
Sure. That's something that's an age-old dilemma. We're pretty much now, we seem to be working in some kind of a team environment, even though the team may be spread out in different countries, different states, and whatever. Because of networks, we're all connected. And so the chances are that some of the content we're using in our knowledge bases or our help systems are also used by our other colleagues. And so how do we make sure that the screenshot that we're using is the most current or the appropriate one for a certain audience? And so in the old days, we would have, from the old developer model, of version control or source control, as it was called. And oftentimes, authors really weren't privy to having that sophisticated kind of source control software, so they were sort of left up to their own devices. Nowadays, we do have things like SharePoint and so forth have built-in version control. But still, it would be nice to be able to have a less complicated, because, with version control, you've got databases and all kinds of networking issues. You've got to get a buy-in from the IT people. And so what RoboHelp has done is they've provided something called the Resource Manager, where you can link a document. And it could be a PDF, a Word document. It could be a graphic, screenshots, could be even a style sheet that your team is using, so that when you drag it from that resource pool of assets into your project, then it becomes linked. We call it live linking. And so that if another author who owns that object, let's say, edits it and makes a change, if it's in your project, you can see that the green dot changes to red and says, uh-oh, somebody has changed this object. So if I want to keep in sync, I need to go take a look at that and then update it. That's just in a very kind of a basic way of explaining how to reuse objects in a team to keep things in sync.
Well, both those topics sound like it'll be a lot of fun to dig in and get all the details from that. And so again, we want to thank Adobe for helping make it possible for you to be participating in the event. And we'll see you in just under a couple of months in Tacoma.
Great, and thanks for putting on these conferences, Joe. It really helps.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Bye-bye.